Heidi ho, good neighbors. How are you? I hope you had a great weekend. We're starting the week off great. It's a holiday week, but we're starting it great with a fantastic guest. He is my first return guest, so apparently somebody wanted to come back and talk to me again. So I'm happy about that. He's also one of my favorite people in the industry, and he put out a book that we talked about last time that I love to death. So we're going to get into that today. Before we do, I'm Phil Russert, and I'm your host of Creatorcon Q&A, and this is episode 35. We're just rolling along. And before we get started, I have my usual shout outs. But today, I want to start with letting you know about my good friend, George Vega. That's his contact below. And I want you to know that he has a Kickstarter that was supposed to launch on the 25th, but ironically, he accidentally launched it today. This is his follow-up second issue to his book, The World of M. I do have the first one. And if you look at the graphic, he even put it in there. That is me. I am the carnival barker. So I am in the book. And he did a good likeness of me, maybe a little thinner than I really am. But, he did a good likeness, and I appreciate that. And it's a great book, The World of M. If you like, you know what? I'm supposed to read that promo. Let me get that promo up. He gave me a beautiful promo to read for you, and I dropped the ball. All right, you ready? Here we go. So The World of M Kickstarter is a steampunk fantasy adventure story created by George Vega. This Kickstarter is for issue number 2, where questions are answered and more of this world is explored. It is launched today. It is active right now, so please go check it out and please go pledge. And if you can't pledge, at least share it out for everybody so those who would like to pledge can. We appreciate that. We got to support our local and indie creators. Also, my usual shout-outs are, Comics Cast with Joe Tolliver and Jarrell Motos. They are a YouTube channel. They have a lot of guests as well, especially in the indie scene, so go check them out, please. We have Android's Amazing Podcast with James Santana and Hunter, and they are awesome, and they talk about everything from the new comics coming out to the history of comics to all your favorite characters. We have The Bitten Apple, which is Rafael Tavares Jr. and his crew, and they will be at my show as free press, so please check them out on YouTube and everywhere you can find them online. It Came from the Radio. Mark Torres is the host and his crew, and I will be their guest on Wednesday. It is not a live recording, though, so you will see it the following Monday. I will be on. If you're interested in hearing my big mouth even more about me personally and the show coming up in December, listen to It Came from the Radio. You can also listen to some other awesome guests that they have on during the week. Mad Titan Comics, Mad Titan _comics on Instagram. Eric Gunderson is the owner-operator on Facebook. Please check him out for your comic book needs. Slabbed, keys, dollar issues, you name it. Filling in your holes. Go see him. We have Andy Lee with lesdudis.com, www.lesdudis.com. Andy Lee is an awesome guy. It's everything pop culture and geek culture, so please check him out. Art by Kike. That is the Instagram page for Kike, which is Enrique Lopez. He has his Inking with Kike every Monday night at 8 p.m. This month is Female Artist Month, so check him out. And finally, and most importantly, we had guests on just recently that were very important, and I feel that we should really pay attention to them. It's a charity for pediatric cancer and cystic fibrosis, which are serious, obviously, chronic illnesses that don't just affect people, but the families and everyone that loves them and around them. Heroes for Causes, they do comic books that are pretty cool, and they really identify with those chronic illnesses. Please check out down here below is where you can go buy one of the comic books. The art is excellent, and the quality is excellent. It's a real comic book with real heroes they created, and your money is going to a great cause, not to line someone's pockets. So please go check them out. Again, that's Heroes for Causes. They're there.com, on Facebook and Instagram. Pathway CF Superhero. Pathway is the superhero that they created for cystic fibrosis. So now that I got that all out of the way, and I hope that you guys please pledge and support all those people. Tonight's guest is my first return guest. He is an awesome guy. He's done Iron Man and Wolverine and you name it. I mean, you know it. If you don't know it, then you live in a closet. But he's got his current book, Wingman, which we're going to discuss. He's on Batman Beyond currently, which has its issue 50, which I think it's its last issue because of everything going on with DC coming up. And he's going to be on a really cool special project with Chris Claremont, Bill Sienkiewicz, and Brett Booth coming up. And we're going to discuss all of that. So without further ado, one of the coolest guys in the industry, Chen. Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. We see your wheels turning in the background.
So I'm your first recurring guest. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Real? Wow. Okay. I'm honored.
You're in like the hall of the Creatorcon Hall of Fame now.
Very cool.
We're gonna get you a plaque or a star on my floor.
I'm honored. Very much.
Well, I appreciate you can come back. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I have stuff to plug, so.
Fair enough. Honesty is always the best policy. Oh, we have a bunch of comments I didn't put on yet. So, all right, before we get into talking with you, just give everybody the hellos. Del Guzman, hell yo posse. Evening all from Heather. My mother says hello, and you know my mother from the shows. She said happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Del is already firing the questions. Look at that. And we got Andy is here.
Oh, let's I got something to show Andy, by the way. This is Andy's sketch cover that he commissioned for me well over a year ago. So I just want to say that it's done.
It looks beautiful, though. Look at that. He debuted it on my show. I feel special.
Yeah.
He said, oh, snap. It looks great.
Cool. So, as soon as we can meet up again, I'll give it to him. So.
That is awesome. Yeah, he will be at my show December 6th. So
okay, maybe I'll show up and I'll bring it with me. So.
Cool. And if you can, I could always maybe meet with you, grab it, and give it to him at the show if that helps. Otherwise, whatever you want to do. Anyway, so look, let's get into it. We spoke about this. This came out in a different published format last year. First, you started with it on Instagram doing panels and showing people, right? Well, tell us about the evolution of the book, how it started from those panels on Instagram and then went through two different publication styles and how we got to here.
The first publication was basically an ash can. It's like something the artist puts out himself, and you do it at like Kinko's or Minuteman Press. So that was that deal.
And I have it. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the true first printing. Before that, the whole thing was on Instagram. And what I would do is just kind of like draw like maybe a few pages a month and put them up in batches or something, just to make content for Instagram. And so this whole thing is available online for free at my Instagram. But I always felt it was difficult to find. Like if you came midway through the story, you'd have to kind of like search through the whole thing to find pages. So, and a lot of people were asking for a printed version. So I put out that ash can, and then a friend of mine wanted to publish it for, as their debut book. He started like a little boutique publishing company called Next Chapter. Kind of came about during the pandemic. So we kind of, came together and put it out. And this version has the creator commentary in it, which is the extra stuff.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, it's just basically a making blog that says how to put together a comic, and from the art standpoint and from the writing standpoint. So it's got some two things. You got the whole story from beginning to end, and then you also have the creator commentary that gives you a little bit of advice, like if you're doing this on your own, how to write and draw your own comic. So.
Well, I'm going to show some pages that you sent me on the screen, but before we get into that and showing the commentary, let's go back. What inspired you to do this story? And it's your first writing debut, correct?
Right. So it was maybe a couple of years ago. I was working primarily in advertising. I left comics because I couldn't kind of deal with how much work it was and how little the pay was, and there was a lot of hassles with it. So I left and then did advertising. But ironically, while I was gone, I started to really miss the whole comic thing, and I kind of really developed a love for the art form, something I didn't really have before. I always liked drawing, but I never really appreciated comics. I thought it was just a place for me to draw. But now I can really appreciate the whole storytelling and the whole art form of it. So I would, after when I don't have advertising work, I would kind of come up with these ideas and draw them, and it's just a way to kind of get some comic stuff going while I was doing advertising work. So the reason for the subject matter was I just came upon an image of from the movie. I never saw the movie before, but they had those two characters, like the death character and the night character. I thought they looked visually like really cool. So, I was always looking for stuff to fill up my Instagram. So I drew pictures of those two characters, and then I realized what I liked about those characters. The dialogue was really cool. So I put a little word balloon there, and it kind of looked like a comic book panel. So when I put it up, there were people saying like, "Okay, where's the rest of it?" And I was like, "Well, okay, I'll just do another page," and kind of just went a page at a time until I got all the way to the end. So
I remember when you first got Instagram, it was only like 2 years ago, and you're a very humble guy, and you were shocked by how quickly your Instagram grew and how many people started following you. I remember. And then I was following you religiously, as I still do, and I remember seeing this first page, and you thought I was always a superhero guy, but I read it and I loved it instantly because not just the humor in it. See, you have a really good sense of humor, but you also had a nice sense of drama. And life isn't just one or the other; it's a mix of everything. You had a moral theme in this. You had some great, humor where you really laughed, what was going on, and it was touching moments. And I really love this story. I really do. Anybody who watched the last time you were on, I'm very passionate about this book. Honestly, it's one of the best things I've seen written by someone, especially for a writing debut. So congratulations on that. I was depressed when I was sad when I wasn't going to see it on your feed anymore, like the newest chapter when it was done. So I bought the first published right away. I was excited. And then when you told me about this with the commentary, and again, this is the back of the book, by the way. 19100, it's numbered. And I just, everybody should know how amazing your artwork is. And to be honest with you, your backgrounds are probably the best in the business, in my opinion. I mean, your backgrounds are insanely detailed. And I feel special because you actually reached out to me. It was a simple question, but it was a health field question for the authenticity of the hospital scene. Because I'm a nurse, you reached out to me and asked me about it to make sure that it was right in the book. So I guess I'm a little a part of it.
Even bigger than that, though, I think early on when I put out the first couple pages, I thought it was kind of cool that, like in the movie, Death and the Knight kind of play a game of chess for his life, and I thought it'd be really funny if you just switch it up and they just play video games. And I thought it was hilarious. And then when I put it out there, I think you were the one that commented like, "This is just like Bill and Ted's."
Yes. You're damn right.
Right. So then I went to go watch. I've never seen Bill and Ted, so I watched it, and I was like, "Oh, this is exactly the same thing." So this project is over. Because it's just embarrassing that I'm doing the same thing. So then that's when it took a turn for a different direction. So it was like, if you didn't mention that, I would have been going down this slapstick, playing different video games routes, like best, 5 out of 7 or whatever. It would have gone on forever, and it would just been sad. So you actually were the person that gave me the reason for the course correction, and the reason why the story is where it is today was
I didn't know that.
Made me take a detour. So
wow, I didn't know that. Well, I'm glad it was for the good, not for because I wasn't saying it as a critique. I was saying that I thought it was because I love that interaction that they had in that movie. So
right. Well, thankfully you spoke up about it, because it would have been it's not a good thing to go down that same path at the movie, completely not knowing that it was the same thing.
The thing too, though, about your humor is it's relatable and funny, but it also has intelligence to it. It's not boring and stiff, but it is at times cerebral. It's smart humor, and I love that. I mean, I can go for slapstick too, and there's always those silly elements. But so let's show a page here. If you want, I can make it bigger by putting us out so they can see the commentary. It would just knock our boxes out. If you want to talk about this, it's up to you.
Okay, well, this is just what the book looks like on the inside. So it's a square format because of the Instagram window is square. But they publish it in this horizontal format, leaving extra room for a little commentary. So those little commentary things, like this one, is about it's about page layout. So what it's basically saying is that when you have a page, ideally a comic book page should have different sized figures on it. Otherwise, it becomes very boring. So you can see that there's some very large heads and there's some very small figures to kind of mix it up. And then it says that it's always a good idea to have one panel where the figures their feet are on the ground, so you don't just have floating heads. And it's just the book is kind of full of little tips like that. So just to keep aware of when you're drawing, like these general rules for, best practices for putting out your own book.
See, I think that's invaluable because there are a lot of people up and coming and trying to create books, and artists and writers, and a writer needs to know how panels work out a lot too. Because if you're going to write a proper script and send it to an artist, you have to be able to understand what the artist knows as far as storytelling, I think.
Right.
And I got another page here. This one doesn't have commentary, but it's just to show you the interiors. If they're okay, and again, look at the art; it's beautiful. Look at his backgrounds. I'm telling you, you and an artist, Ricardo Silva, do the most amazing backgrounds, and your backgrounds are just impeccable. I mean, it looks like a photograph, especially when you do like city panoramas. If I see Spider-Man swinging, and the angles, the composition at times is just phenomenal. I mean, look at that.
Yeah, that all basically came about with when I draw, I try to make the drawing look as good as possible. And I found that I personally like books like Akira, where it has like a lot of backgrounds. For some reason, that kind of struck a chord with me. So I always try to put it in my own drawings. So even if you see a lot of my commission pieces, a lot of commissions are either headshots or just full body figures with just nothing except a drop shadow. But I always put in like a full background in there because for some reason it just doesn't look finished, or it doesn't look or every drawing just looks better if there's a background context to it. So it's a real pain in the ass to do, and it takes a long time, but I think for me it's worth it.
Yeah, like I said, best backgrounds, they're incredible. Sometimes I'm not even looking at the main figure. The backgrounds is so beautiful, I just stare at those. And here's another page with a commentary. Go ahead.
So yeah, this one is just saying that there's an art style change because they're talking about church painting, so it's switching the art style a little bit. And then the bottom caption says something about that bridge as kind of being a separation between the real world and the kind of the floating world that they're going to. So it's like a visual transition type thing.
A symbolic device.
Yeah, symbolic, yeah, metaphor type thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, personally, I think the black and white. Where did you go? There you go. Personally, I think the black and white fits this very well, especially when it comes to the Grim Reaper, when it comes to death. You capture expression very well in this, and there's a lot of expression in this. There are funny moments. There are moments, where the knight is pleading and bargaining and trying to worm his way out of things. So those are all. And they're not very typical emotional expressions that you see in comics. So, I mean, how difficult is it to draw those emotions?
It's one of the harder things to do. Actually, that stuff is something I'm kind of wrestling with kind of currently. I think that if there's any criticism of my work in the past, it was always that the figures look a little bit stiff. And I find it very hard to draw. Like, the likenesses and the faces are very difficult. And they get only harder if you have to communicate like different expressions, because then you have to contort it, and then sometimes you lose the likeness. Or you can draw kind of a static face, but then trying to draw a face that lets expressions in it, it becomes even harder. So that kind of came along with just developing my draftsmanship a little bit, just getting better at drawing. You get better at drawing different expressions, and just being aware that it is actually the most important thing you do in comics is to convey body language and facial expressions.
By the way, for all of you who didn't listen to me at the first show and missed out and didn't buy the book, We got art. This is an actual
Yeah,
panel from Batman Beyond.
yeah. The people who bought the book in the first round, I think half of the people got free artwork with it. And I think that was part of the deal. It's part of like the first edition.
Yep.
So, unfortunately, we can't make that part of the second one. And I was like always scrambling to find enough artwork to put in there because they needed so many pieces. So I started taking the original art and cutting up the original art, which is something that a lot of original art purists don't like to hear. But yeah, this the only way I can get the volume of stuff is to cut up panels and pack them in with the book.
I didn't even pay attention to that part really because I was just excited to get the book. So when it came in the mail, and it came like I think 2 weeks ago now, and I found this, I messaged you. I'm like, dude, is this original art? Did you give me original art from the book?
He said, "This is a nice print." I was like, "It's not a print."
No, I said, "Is this a printer?" Because it texturally and when you look, you get the shine. It looks like the lead of a pencil. Is this really it? Because the way it was cut, I didn't, I wouldn't think you would cut it out of the page. And then I was like, "Oh my God, this is real pencil." But again, look at the backgrounds on this too. I mean, just detailed, amazing. And this character blew up when she came out, the female Batman Beyond, and I've got an original piece, and I was just ecstatic. I was like, man, I was just happy to get the book. So that is awesome. Yeah, Andy got one too with his book, and Andy had a beautiful piece of art. I'm going to show the book again. It's just so you know, it winds up being how many pages is this bad boy? It's like 57 pages of story.
Yeah.
It's Wingman, right? Look there. Compendium of an artist's first writing experience. You again, I'm just gonna. You saw some of the interiors, but you've got some amazing stuff going on in here. Great panel, and the commentary is really helpful. And honestly, even if you're not interested in the story, and I'm being serious, people who want to write or storytell through art, this would be a good book to pick up because not only do you have your commentary, but you literally have the reference right next to it. It's a learning tool, right?
Yeah, that was very important to the publisher, and that's why I kind of chose them to publish it over anyone else. Is a lot of people kind of just wanted to have a reprint of the book and didn't want to do that extra work or even pay for the extra pages. But this guy Carl Choi from Next Chapter, he's very big on the outreach and doing a lot with the schools, like his local schools, and just to have an educational component around it. I think that was really important to him. So, and that worked out for me too because you can read the whole thing on Instagram for free. So I had to have something extra to put in there to make it worth buying. So it worked out well, and I think he's really proud of it, and I think he's gonna kind of push it out to a lot of like the schools or whatever, just to get kids interested in kind of expressing themselves through comics.
Nice.
So I think it's good in that way that it's kind of an outreach also.
Hey Grant, thanks for coming out. Grant said, "Hey everybody," and we had another hello earlier. I passed. Sorry, somebody said hello earlier. Dante's here. He said, "Hey guys." Giovanni said, "Hello guys." So we got some people saying hi. Now, were you nervous about the reception you would get, being that it's your first writing gig?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I would ever write something in a formal way. But I mean, you can understand that this was on Instagram and it also was never meant to be published. It actually never was meant to go beyond 1 or 2 pages. So I would only do it if there was, if there seemed to be interest, people were responding positively, then I'll do 1 more page. But with subject matter like this and the type of story it is, there's a big danger in coming off very like pretentious or it can be very cringy if you're kind of out of your league and you're not a writer and you're writing big themes like this. You can really end up with egg on your face. So there is this what's his name? A guy, Daniel Warren Johnson, who has a book called Space Mullet, and it sounds like a ridiculous title. So when you open it up, it's just going to be like a crazy romp that's kind of ridiculous, but there's actually a real story inside. And the reason they call it Space Mullet is to kind of lower the expectations. And so, I think I tried to write this story with all the rigors of sound storytelling and try to make a real heartfelt story. But there's a danger in coming off very pretentious, and so I put in a lot of humor stuff, a lot of gag stuff, and also never meant it for publication. So I removed all the barriers that could kind of potentially hurt me, and only publish it after it's kind of pre-approved, like, you know, it's already like it gets the thumbs up from the right people. So
Right.
then I'll publish it so that I won't end up, you know, really embarrassed by it, because that's a big danger.
Did you have anybody that you kind of bounced the ideas off of or got any tutelage from as far as like professional writers, or did you just, no pun intended, wing this?
Well, you know, you'd be surprised if you try to tell someone I wrote something, would you read it? Most of the time they won't, just because it's a lot to ask of someone.
Even the great Sean Chen?
So the people who did read it were from the Instagram. So I was taking all of my cues from them, and I consider those people to be the group editors. I mean, they're the editors, and they told me if it was funny, and they told me if there was a plot hole, and they picked out all the spelling mistakes. And then you, I mean, one of the bigger
I don't see my editing credits in here.
Yeah. You're listed under find followers on Instagram.
Yeah. I think that's great. I really do. I mean, you're a very humble guy, but you're also, I've always come across as a very intelligent human being. So either you're really good at selling that, or you're an intelligent human being. So this story just seems kind of right up your alley as far as your humor mixed with intelligence.
A big part of it is that I am over 50 years old, and the older you get, the better. You know, if I were writing when I was 19, it would just be embarrassing. So I have a lot of life experience and a lot of, you know, you just get smarter as you get older, and you read a lot more and you watch a lot more movies. So you can come out and,
well, some of us do.
I wouldn't have advised people to wait this long, but I did. So it's kind of like a safety net, just to don't embarrass yourself, you know.
So are you going to look to follow up and write some more, or is this a one and done and you're satisfied, or do you have a desire to do more writing and creating?
I definitely do. I'll probably do it the same way. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know whether I can do this well, and whether that was a fluke. So if I ever do it again, it'll just be kind of release free on the interwebs, and then if it looks like it's going somewhere, then I'll have it published. But I don't think I would take a job from Marvel and start writing. You know, I don't think.
Well, okay, but you know, I mean, besides just going through the internet, there's plenty of editors out there I think would would read it for you, and not. I mean, I know some people that might be willing to read it and edit it and look at it without, you know, charging you and just helping out. But I mean, you're Sean Chen, but you know, but either way, I'm not going to turn down getting to read something you do on Instagram. But I definitely think this is not a fluke. You don't write a story this well and it's a fluke. That's my opinion, and I wouldn't say that if I didn't mean that. I would just stay quiet. I mean, I'm not gonna insult someone, but I'm not gonna lie to them either. So,
Right.
Who are your writing influences? Do you have? I mean, you've always been an artist. Do you have writing influences?
Well, the big one is Alan Moore, especially with Watchmen. I kind of consider that to be in our medium, just the tops, and by far. So there's not even a distant second. So the level at which he was working on Watchmen was is just kind of through the roof. And I read it once a year, and just, you know, everything is just so tight about it. And I think it's because it was so premeditated. Like maybe he would come up with a story, but then kind of think of every single avenue and kind of like rehash it and make it more and more condensed and better until it's a really tight package. And I think I don't think people do that anymore, because I think most writers, they have like maybe a week to write a story or whatever. So I think that whole like very slow, deliberate process of just making it very concentrated with all that good stuff. He's definitely for me the guy that I looked up to. And outside of that, most of the influence is just mostly from watching movies. 'Cause, um,
Dante, as I'm guessing, Busiek rubbed off on you a bit during your Iron Man run.
sure, yeah, he was great. He was always very into collaboration. So, um, you know, drawing a lot of stories that have been written, you really get to see the nuts and bolts and how it's all put together. So it helps just being in the industry and reading these scripts and drawing them. So when it comes time to draw your own, you know, it's your own baby now. So the artwork, you're extra careful with it, and then you actually spend more time. I guess that's another thing I can talk about, is that if you're kind of just releasing this like maybe a few pages a month, the story was written over a period of like a year. So the only thing that keeps you from that's the only constraint is that after you finish a page, it's locked in, and that story,
Right.
that part is told, and you can't redo it because it's been released. So, but then you have all the other pages to course correct as much as you want. So, you know, most writers take about a week or 5 days to write a comic book story. I can take an entire year, and everything that I come across during that entire year, every book I read, every movie I see, can help inform and tighten that story. And it's been written and rewritten, so it's very condensed, so that even though there's only like 57 pages of the story, it's very dense. So you can actually, it feels like maybe like 4 or 5 issues crammed into a small area, because you're only getting the stuff that's good, and then all
Right.
the other stuff, you know, the wrong directions and the detours are all kind of taken out because it's been written and rewritten so many times in my head before anything was drawn. So,
Dante was asking, why not try to do a creator-owned thing for a more mainstream publisher like Image? Now, they usually require like 6 issues of something before they'll even look to publish for you. But is that something you would maybe consider someday if you had, if you have a story in mind or a character in mind, or would you stay away from the spandex superhero realm altogether?
well, for the next one, I would definitely go more for the, I guess probably more sci-fi thriller
Because
stuff.
Image is doing some of their best books aren't even superhero books.
Yeah, yeah, and that stuff interests me. This I would never, the Wingman subject matter I would never do for something that's supposed to be published, because it's just, I mean, it's a tough sell because of there's no capes and there's no hot chicks or anything. So uh, if I do anything to be published, it would be more commercial, and I'm fine with that. There's a lot of stuff that's very commercial that I like. So this kind of started out as a fluke, and it kind of had to stay in that direction. But it's a place that's hard to sell, I think, from someone who doesn't read it. Just looking at it, they say black and white, and it looks like these black and white movie characters. Like, I'll pass, So,
Have you ever thought of crowdfunding this or something like that to really get it out there as a form of distribution? Or
um, I think, well, the thing with crowdfunding, everyone can see how much money you're making. Everyone can see how far you are from hitting your goal, and everyone can see the failure is very public. They can say
well,
like, wow, you
Indiegogo,
really
there's no failure though. Kickstarter, I have to hit this goal or I'm screwed.
right.
Indiegogo, you just keep putting it out there, and there is no I didn't make my goal. It's whatever you make off of it is, you just got to cover it. Obviously, hopefully, it's enough that it
Right.
covers all of your overhead.
Yeah, well, there's that, but then you never know. I mean, I think I think I would like to actually work with a seasoned writer, just kind of as a first step. Like, I think you might consider this to be a first step in writing, but I think to collaborate with a writer with a bigger name, just because when you're talking about putting out, it's hard to make a lot of money in this business. You almost need a surefire hit. Otherwise, for the amount of time it takes to draw the book, you can really lose your shirt, because it's got to really cover your bases. I think it needs like a big name writer to help push it all the way through, and also to assure that there's some name cachet, and also there's the expertise from a writer. So maybe I would do that next.
Now, when you were writing this, being that you're the writer and the artist, so you're the whole creative team, obviously, except for the letterer, right? Or did you letter it yourself as well?
I, I did letter it and balloon it. So that's the thing,
Wow.
is like the good thing about doing this is that there's a lot of these different disciplines in putting a book together that I never knew about. So putting out a book for the first time, I got to like research what's a good font to use. So this was a font that you can type it in, and then I learned to draw the word balloons in Photoshop and how to do it. So yeah, I talk about that process in the book. So just kind of the best practices for word ballooning and lettering. But that was something I never did before. So
See, that's awesome that you go through all those elements, because there is a lot. I mean, there's the writer sending the script to the artist doing the roughs, and the writer double checking everything's good, and that the story's being collaborated and told well with the artist, and then you're inking, and then you're coloring, and then you're lettering with the balloons, and then there's an editor checking everything for consistency, and then there's printing, and then there's publishing, and it's just there's a lot. So that's amazing. But since you're the writer and the artist, what was your process? I mean, normally the writer sends the script to the artist, but you are the writer and the artist. What was your process when writing this?
Well, it was, I think one of the things about writing for comics is that you have a certain number of pages, and then with me, I was kind of free of that constraint. Like, this just went along as long as I wanted to do it, and ended when I felt like it was over. So that makes it easy because you don't have to kind of pace it the right way or anything. So I was just kind of going and going. I just write one page at a time, but with a real mind of thinking about where it's going to end. So I always kept the ending in mind and kind of make sure I was heading that direction. Originally it was going to be 30 pages long, but then it went all the way to like 50 some pages. So I had the luxury to do that because it's not a comic book that's being published that had these constraints around it. So in that sense, the process was mostly coming up with the next scene, and then trying to cut the number of pages down to half. And then after that, then cutting the dialogue, after I wrote out dialogue, to try to condense the dialogue down to half, and just basically condensing it down so that every scene and every word of dialogue, every dialogue sentence had to do double duty. So you get like multiple things going on in the panels, and then all the words can have like several different meanings, and then have them speak very as short sentences as possible with getting the meaning across, but also sounding like it's real conversation. So that takes the most time, really, is just to have it resemble a real life, meanwhile being very highly directed and conveying all the right information and the right character building stuff without being very wordy, because that it's when people see a lot of word balloons, they don't like it. And then also the fact that this is on Instagram, for mobile, the words are bigger. So these big long conversations had to be cut down to a couple sentences. So that was the big challenge.
So your writing style was affected by the short attention span, and of course the medium that you were putting this on. So how much editing did you do, though? I mean, did you do a lot? Was a lot put on the chopping block? Do we get another issue that has all the lost footage, so to speak?
Yeah, there is actually a lot of stuff that was cut out.
You should put out one with all the cut out stuff. That'd be fun.
Yeah, in fact, some of the artwork that was packaged with the book were those unused pages. It's all cut up and sent out with the book as part of the gift. So
that's cool.
Yeah, there were usually it's a cut for time and cut for space. So I have to remember about when I create a scene, get it as late as possible and get out of the scene as early as possible, so that just the piece of information you want to get across is delivered, and that way you're just not like wasting time building up to a scene. And then even with every establishing shot, how you show a location. A lot of times people just show a location and just name what the place is. But for me, I would have the first scene take place in that establishing shot. So there's word balloons and there's things going on, so you don't waste the panel. So in that sense, it's very tight, and there's a lot of editing to kind of get as much across in a short amount of time as possible.
By the way, Del and Dante, they weren't here at the beginning of the show. They love your background. I said, yeah, it's symbolic of his wheels turning. And then Del said that you have a good heart for putting up with me.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
What in what way am I putting up with you?
Oh, he's just joking. They like to tease me.
Okay.
That's why they're the Rogues Gallery. They like to rib me. Um,
Okay.
he asked, since you're doing everything, does it affect you in how you write, or does writing affect how you draw? I guess what he's trying to say is, being that you're doing both, are you writing so for the art? Is the art writing for the as the art being directed for the writing, or how did that relationship work in your own mind?
Well, it's very strange when you're writing something that you draw. I think when you're drawing a book for like Marvel or DC, there's another writer, and a lot of times you're trying to find, like, you have your own selfish needs, like you need to be able to draw something cool, so you'll make some changes, and sometimes um, the page is too complex, or will take too long, and you don't want to sit there drawing all day, so you'll edit it down and you change what you draw, and then the writer gets it and they like kind of roll their eyes and try to work with what you give them, and that's a lot of times that happens. But when it's your own story, sometimes it's like, well, I need a crowd scene here. I need to put 100 people. I would do it because I have a vested interest in getting that moment across. It has to hit emotionally.
Right.
There's some really big backgrounds in the story, because I need to feel. I need to have an emotional impact. In general, when I'm doing work for Marvel or DC, sometimes I'm, screw the emotional impact. I just want to get through this page.
Well, you also got a tight deadline, and you're not getting paid a lot, and it's not your own passion, so.
Right. So, I mean, you'll see like a lot of times when an artist writes their own story, you kind of groan because he's not a seasoned writer. But a lot of times their projects can be very good because now they're emotionally invested in the story, and their artwork gets better because of it. So, I mean, you can kind of feel the passion a lot of times in these creator-owned things more than you can for work for hire.
Of course. They're your babies, like you said. I mean, I would imagine you feel proud of the reception you got for Wingman. What is it retailing for, and where can we get it?
Through Next Chapter post. Also, if you go to my Instagram, it's in my bio, and also at Next Chapter post, it's in their bio. That takes you to the order page, and they're asking like $28 for it, for the 62 pages. If I don't know if you guys are, if a lot of your listeners are in this area, Long Island or whatever.
They're from everywhere.
Oh, okay. Well, the ones that are nearby.
Is somebody playing a drum?
There's fireworks going off.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
Or gunfire.
Well, Sean lives in Compton, everybody.
Doug! I haven't heard the train go by. The train whistle? That's,
oh, with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? That's a good... Well, the windows are shut. It's winter.
Oh, okay.
In the summer, they're all wide open. So you remember that, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, we all have our mainstays.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry. You were saying about Wingman. How much and where to get it, and.
Well, okay, so if anyone picks it up, and I feel bad that they kind of missed out on the art thing, but I am signing and I'm remarking them. If they can these are being shipped from Canada, so I don't touch them. But if they can get it to me, I will draw on it. And
there's a lot of room to remark on there. Nice big canvas right here to remark, everybody. Nice big remark right there.
Exactly.
It's like a sketch cover.
So for the local people, I'm going to be at World Collectibles doing a signing. And then also I might drop by your show. When is it? Like in a couple of weeks or so?
December 6th. He was originally slated. There was a personal issue that is resolved. But with COVID, we're not sure what we're doing. And of course, I'm filled up now. But Sean is always welcome at my show, even if he's just to come hang out. We could put the books out somewhere. He could do signings if you want, or take the books for remarks and get them back to you at a later time because of the situation. That's up to Sean. But you could always reach out to Sean. And if you want him at the show, tell him you want him at the show. If there's enough people that demand it, you give them reason to be at the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that. Sure.
And if I can help facilitate in any way, I live in Long Island, but if there's any way, if you can't make it to the show and you want to bring the books, for people to buy and whatever, and then I can get them back to you so that you can remark them and work out mailing them out. I'm happy to help in any way I can for you or for people that want the book, because I'm very, very, very serious about this. This is an awesome story. I mean, it really is. I really enjoyed it a lot. To, like I said, the point where it was over on Instagram. I was sad to not see the posts anymore. I have the original published physical copy that he had when it was named something else before its rebranding, and I still wanted this copy. And again, I didn't even realize that I was getting the original art with it. I got it because I just wanted the book. It is very well written. It goes through the emotions of a normal human life. I mean, you have humor, you have tragedy, you have drama, you have a moral theme, moral dilemma. We joked about the Bill and Ted's thing. It was only as far as the humor between the knight and his bartering and trying to weasel his way out of things with death. But the interaction, the storytelling is just. I mean, honestly, Sean, I'm very impressed. You would think that you were writing for a very long time. I'm not saying this because you're Sean Chen. I'm not saying this because I like you. I'm not saying this because we know each other. I just genuinely feel it is a very high quality book, and I really think people should pick it up and read it. You'll enjoy it. I promise you will. If you don't enjoy it, well, you can still get a remark and get original art from Sean Chen. So, I mean, there's no losing here. I'm very serious about that. I'm looking you right in the camera and being very serious. This is a damn good book. It's a really good book, and you should pick it up. I mean, you already know Sean Chen's art is phenomenal, but I promise you the writing is top notch. I mean, it really is. You'd think he was one of the big writers in the industry for years. It's that I'm telling you, it's good. And then you get all the educational cliff notes. I mean, if you're a struggling creator and you want to learn how to do sequential storytelling, shoot, he even talks about lettering in this. His own processes on editing and lettering and bubbles. People don't think of these things. It's not just drawing panels. You have to draw it where you can fit in word bubbles, where you're chewing up all the scene. And the book alone is a tutorial. I mean, there's many reasons to pick up this book. And I'm being very serious. Some of you missed out the first time and you missed out on the original art. Don't let the art be the selling pitch, because the book itself is worth the selling pitch. I'm being very serious about that. I've never been more serious about anything. I really enjoy this book. My wife really enjoyed this book. And I really would love to see you do more writing. I'm very serious. As if you didn't hear me say that enough. So Sean's been humbled and embarrassed. He's turning red. Steve said, Sean rocks.
Cool.
Yeah. No, seriously, please, guys. I know money's tight, times are tough, but if you're looking for something good to read, and especially if you're tired of the crap that's out there, it's same old, this is really a great book to read, and you don't have to continue throwing money into it. It's a self-contained story, but it's 57 pages, as well as the tutorials that help educate you. I mean, you don't even have to be an artist or a writer to just the fascination of seeing the process of creating a comic book by looking at this book. So, I mean, those are two reasons alone to enjoy this. And then the third is, like you said, he'll remark it. Got a nice big, if this is perfect right there. Nice remark. Come on, Sean. What do we got? Batman Beyond. We got Iron Man, Wolverine, or just a character from the book. You even, look, if you want to spend the money, there's a page on the inside. Maybe he'll do an actual sketch for you for whatever your budget is, right on the front page in there. I mean, I'm selling it this hard because I believe in it. I believe in it. That's why I'm selling it this hard. So don't be foolish. Go buy the damn book.
Wow. That's the best endorsement I ever got for this book. So that's great.
Well, it's sincere. It really is sincere, Sean. Even if you were a jerk and I didn't like you, the book is good.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, George showed up. We plugged you at the beginning, George. Yes, Sean rocks.
I wish I knew. I'm sure if I saw these people, I'd recognize them, but from their name, I don't really know who they are. But if there are local guys, I think I've seen them all because I do a lot of conventions locally. So.
Yeah, I'm sure, George, you probably met George before, and you probably see so many people, how can you remember? But Well, I'm gonna revisit and plug again Wingman before we go, but we want to get into other things that you're doing as well. You've
Okay.
been having a very successful run of Batman Beyond. You took a character that was spawned from the cartoon, and that doesn't always translate well into comics and sales, but it was doing really well, and it had a great creative team, and you were doing amazing work on it. We have issue number 50 coming up. So, do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. Basically, DC's kind of their publishing plans are kind of changing, and so I think they had to close that book down for because it didn't quite fit in with the stuff they had coming up. So they kind of like went out with a big bang. Dan Jurgens wrote this last one. They decided to end it with issue 50. So I was drawing the book before. I was off for a couple of issues because of this whole COVID thing. My kids are at home. The schools won't stay open, so I had trouble keeping the schedule. But they
Yeah.
brought me back for issue 50. And so it's the final one, and then it's going to be the big hurrah. And there's a lot of stuff that kind of sets up things that are coming up. Kind of like leads into what they're planning to do with the books. And I can't say anything about it, but I know I drew some stuff, and they wouldn't even tell me what their plans for the future were. But I was drawing some stuff that I was like kind of wondering like, how does this, what is this going to be in the future? So it's definitely a good book to pick up. And I'm going to be, it comes out on December 23rd. And at some point, I'm going to be signing at Royal Collectibles in Forest Hills. And that's the place I'm doing some remarked issues and signing a lot of them. So that book is coming out. And then, ironically, the same time, the project I'm doing with Chris Claremont, the Chris Claremont anniversary issue, is also coming out at the same time. So this is a cautionary tale. If you're a big company and you don't put your artists on a contract or give them continuing work, they can go off to another company and put out a product that competes with your other one. You can ignore both of those books. They're corporately made anyways, and just buy Wingman. I know what money's like. Buy my book. So yeah, that's before Christmas. There's a lot to buy. So
Well, let's backtrack for a second. Tell everybody why they should be going and getting back issues of Batman Beyond and collecting your works in that. Tell us why this book has been so solid and why they need to pick up issue 50.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
You got to sell it, Sean. Sell it, Sean.
Well, the book was a challenge to me because I know the universe that's in the cartoon is very stylized, kind of futuristic, kind of film noir. And it was tough to translate that into the world of comics. I think comics is a little bit more realistic. And my style definitely is very more realistic. So if you ever want to see what that stuff looks like in a comic book, I think what Dan Jurgens liked most of all was that I would make Neo Gotham into kind of like another character. So I would draw it like in the cartoon, it's basically like a backdrop. It's just kind of like silhouettes of buildings. But this story took place really inside Neo Gotham, and you get to see all different parts of it. And so it really does, like the city does come to life. And yeah,
Which I think makes that book perfect for you with the way you do backgrounds.
Yeah, definitely. I think it I wasn't planning on doing that book except for the fact that it played up on all of my strength. It's more in the future, and there's a lot of like the backgrounds and props really played a big part of it. What I found difficult was Batman Beyond. The character himself is more like it exists more like a graphic design. He's like a silhouette, and you don't really need to know specifically like does he have a mouth and how does his mouth work? And that it seems like his costume is painted on, or it's not very real in the cartoon because it doesn't have to be. It's just like he's like a symbol. But then the way I draw it, you kind of have to figure all that stuff out. So that was a challenge, and it's also I think it's interesting to see. And I think it started out with when Batman Beyond was missing, and then it was the story was taken over by that mysterious female who took the costume and started doing all the Batman Beyond stuff as a woman. And then it's the mystery of who was she, and so a lot of cool stuff. A lot of big set pieces and a lot of good, solid Dan Jurgens writing in it. So I think it made a nice package overall. So I was really, really proud of all the stuff I worked on. I thought that my art was getting to the point where I was actually proud of what I was producing, as opposed to when I was younger. I was kind of like wishing it would be something better, wishing it would be something else, and wishing it would be better. But now I felt like I'm actually getting there, or have gotten there, and I think it really shows in the pages. So
And when did you said it before? When is number 50 coming out? When will we see it on the shelves?
December 23rd. So
Just in time for Christmas, guys.
makes a great stocking stuffer. So does
Yeah,
Wingman.
just don't fold it up because it might be worth something someday. um, so obviously you're wrapping up number 50. I mean, how does it feel after, being on it for a while and all the work you put into it? Is it bittersweet? Is it sad? I mean, how do you feel about the title ending? And a follow-up question, what's your opinions on the current DC climate and situation?
Um, well, I understand that there's bigger things at work at DC, and it just didn't have a spot there. So, I was fine with it's a book that I kind of got comfortable with, and I think the conventional wisdom is that you brought onto a book, and then it takes a while to get used to it, to get into your groove. It also takes a while, like maybe a year, for the penciler and the inker to really gel, and for the colorist, and for that synergy to happen between all the creative people who put the book together. So I thought we were just kind of hitting our stride. Like, I think I had a lot to show if we just kept the group together and keep on putting out more and more of these stories. I felt like I was really just starting to hit my stride. And then it was always, they always planned to end it. They told me when I got it, I said, well, you're not on this book forever, because it does come to a close at issue 50. So, so I was like, well, that's fine, because I didn't want to do it for that long. But as I was doing it, I kind of wanted to continue. So Dan Jurgen says, we'll just have a blast on the way out, and then we'll see what comes down the pike. So, so yeah, it's I understand that I think when the second part of your question about what the climate is like at DC, I'm kind of out of that loop, because I draw the book for them, and I kind of stay out of it. But it's kind of clear that DC is kind of changing into something else. I mean, not so drastically, but they're not going to stop publishing. I'm pretty sure of that. But the way they're doing it's going to change, like all things change. And it's going to be good for some people, and some people it's going to be harder for. So one of the bad things is it ended my book, and it might not be great for distributors or retail. I don't know what the plans are, but the thing is, change has always been part of this business. I mean, it's been the same for a while, but then the industry changes, and the way we do business changes, and it's going to become something else. But there'll still be comics, and
but with the downsizing of so many titles, there's a whole stable of artists out there. I mean, currently working, not currently working, and now you're thinning, the career opportunities even more for all these people. I mean, where do you see these artists going? Do you see them going the indie route? Do you see them another Image popping up somewhere, like a bunch of artists and writers getting together and creating their own publishing company? I mean, are we going to see a repeat of the '90s?
For sure. There are doors that are closing, but then there are doors that are opening. So I mean, you can say that it's true. It's like it's a hard time to be an artist, but it's also one of the best times for different reasons. So yeah, I think definitely there's going to be I think the best work in this business is going to be coming out from the indie side, and I think that's great, because I think the technology has gotten to a point where one person. That's what's great about our business. If you wanted to make a comic, no one can stop you. You can just do it, because from your own desktop and your computer, and you can pretty much do everything yourself. And if you're not a great artist, you can play up on the writing. If you're not a great writer, you can play up on the art. So there's always a way to put out stuff that will interest people. So that's a great thing. But if you are like an artist who wants to work for Marvel or DC, it's going to get a little tougher. There's basically like the globalization of the business, where they can find artists from all around the world.
Yep. At lower page rates because of the currency, the exchange rate and things, right. That's affected too.
And you can always say that, well, someone in the Philippines may not get Western culture, but Western culture is everywhere now. We all watch the same movies. We all stream the same stuff.
Sure.
They're pretty much right up, right up to speed with everything pop culturally. So some of the best work is coming from all around the world. So, I mean, the pool of artists is getting larger, and then the number of books is getting smaller. But then I would say just step outside of Marvel and DC and put out your own stuff with your own, your own passion, and do it that way.
I think the tough thing with indie right now that they face, I think first of all, the quality of indie work is so much more than it ever was, and in some cases is even on par with what you're seeing in DC and everything. You're also seeing a lot of former DC Marvel guys, the people that aren't getting the respect they used to, that made the industry, are putting out their own stuff. But I think the one hurdle that they have to face is with crowdfunding. Financially, it's tough because if you have like 100 Kickstarters out there and they all want $25 for a book, and it's one book, even if it's 50, 60 issues, people are limited with their funds. And then you don't have the distribution. And their costs aren't going to go down unless they have the distribution to go, hundreds of thousands of copies all over the United States or more. When someone can really get the distribution for these crowdfunding campaigns to a level that is really helping them, it's going to really hurt these guys with their indie overhead, which means book prices can't go down and they're not reaching as many people. So someone's going to have to step up. And I know some people are trying, and really become that distributor for them, for it to really help these guys get out there. Because you could have look, I have a show. I could have Jim Lee at my show, but if nobody knows about my show, who cares? Quality is only as good as much as people know about it. Like Wingman, quality, but do you know about it? Real quick, we have some comments. Dante was saying he followed you since Rye, and he thought you were awesome all along. I agree. He also said his take on being a longtime fan, is it equated to DC's 70s implosion, where they downsized the line, then blew it up in the 80s. It has more to do with AT&T surveying what they have and seeing what direction they want to take in the company. I agree to an extent. The only problem is there are other avenues they can go now that could be detrimental and hurting them, blow up again in the next decade, like digital. There's a lot of people that will not go to digital. They don't want digital as much as some people want 100 issues on an iPad. It's easy to pull up. Some people will never stop wanting a physical copy, like myself. So I agree, but I don't think it's going to be quite the same just because of technology, social media, etc. And yes, Chris Campana, who will be at the show, by the way, did just publish an amazing comic. He has quite a few books. How's it going, Randy? So let's go to the Chris Claremont special for Marvel. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about a few things Marvel's doing, which I never thought I'd say again. It's been a while since I've been excited about Marvel. I'm hoping that they're getting it and they're putting out, like Brett Booth is doing the X-Men from the 90s storyline. I'm hoping they're getting it. I really do. So you can't give us a lot about it, but you're going to be on collaborating on celebrating 5 decades of creating with Chris Claremont writing. You got Brett Booth and Bill Sienkiewicz and yourself drawing. Can you give us anything about it, or?
I guess the book it's called the Chris Claremont Anniversary Issue, so it's kind of a tribute to him, and he's writing the story that kind of uses a lot of the characters he made, seminal works from the past, characters that he really made popular. So he kind of combined into one story that kind of runs through the whole thing, and there's a few artists on the book. So I was one of them. I'm not sure where my story falls, but it's a segment. I think the linchpin to this whole thing is Danny Moonstar. She kind of like is the connecting tissue between all the different stories. So they called me to draw it, and I was all over it. It's a Chris Claremont story. It's a script, so it's tough. I mean, even though the pages, it's not like a full issue, but it sure did feel like it because of the number of characters, and since he kind of had to make the most of those pages. So I kind of see it as a trend where, like, there's names like Brett Booth, Bill Sienkiewicz is me, and Chris Claremont. They're names from the past, like 90s. So I guess Marvel, can kind of cast a wide net. Like there are people who love what's going on with the X-Men now, like the Jonathan Hickman stuff, and that serves that crowd. And there are some people who look at that stuff and are scratching their heads. So this is something to serve the other crowd, just because it doesn't have to all be one way.
Right.
So this is kind of like if you like what happened back then, if you thought Marvel was cool back then this is like a little treat for you. It's a nice story that's in that same vein.
They should have got Bob McLeod on this.
Yeah, I mean, I was brought on to pencil a book. I don't really know who's doing anything else on it, but it's kind of like we're kind of kept in the dark about a lot of this. So I have my portion, and that's it. I don't know much about it other than
did you get to
on the book.
Did you get to interact with Chris, or you just got your script and did what you had to do?
Oh, I think I was. He has a number on there. I've interacted before when we did X-Men the End. That was 18 issues I did with Chris Claremont.
Yep.
So yeah, we did meet up a lot and discuss that. But this one, I kind of just what it is. I took a first pass at it and drew it, and I just wrote a note to Chris and the editor saying that a lot of this stuff's going to change because it's complex. I'm not getting the story before or after, so just let me know what needs to change. And then sure enough, I got an email back like, well, okay, some things have to change. So I'm like redrawing some stuff. So there's back and forth that way. So.
Are you excited though about this book coming out? And I think it's going to get a good reception because I think there are a large majority of people hungry for a little retro X-Men. I really do. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, let me know. But I think there is a large group of readers that are hungry for this and are going to be excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how many of these there are out there, but they certainly are a vocal crowd, and they seem to be like sometimes a vocal and very angry crowd that they want things to be a certain way. Well,
I mean, like I'm one of those guys that I understand things have to move forward and changes have to be made, but it's really about what are the changes and what are the reasons for the changes, and do they seem like natural character development? And I think that's the struggle that's going on with the changes. Personally, I also think it has to do with a lack of continuity because you're constantly changing creative teams because you're all freelancers at this point, and the industry is different. So change is good, but I don't think you have to alienate the viewers of the readers of the past that kept you afloat when Marvel was ready to go bankrupt 2 or 3 times either.
Yeah, I agree. So this book kind of
you're like, don't get me in trouble, Phil. Don't get me in trouble, Phil. I can't say anything.
Well, what I think Tom Brevoort once told me that it's very hard to, like, you do one thing that you think is right. There's no way to make a book that satisfies everyone because the fans come from all different parts, all different shapes and stripes. So you have to choose a direction, and then you're gonna piss off this crowd, and you go that way, then you piss off the other crowd. So you kind of can't win. There's always gonna be a very vocal minority of people that are gonna say that the book is terrible and you're on your last legs. So.
You know how I think they can win, though? I mean, if you don't mind my unsolicited opinion.
What's to do it your way?
No, it's not about doing it my way. It's about if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They had a model that allowed them continuity. I mean, if you were to mention some of the greatest runs ever in comics, you hear names like Chris Claremont, 17 Years in X-Men, or John Byrne, because they were allowed to flesh out characters for more than 12 issues.
Right.
And because they were consistently on the book, character development, character changes seemed more natural progression because you had the same writer who was writing them. What happens is you get a new writer after 12 months, and this writer wants to write Nightcrawler the way he sees Nightcrawler, which there's no flow now from what Nightcrawler always was. And that alienates Nightcrawler fans. I'm not speaking from experience. I really think that they have to give you creators not only more room to create because they've tightened up on you, but they have to give you a longer run on these books. I mean, the quality books, you have to give people time. You said it yourself the way you were with Batman Beyond. You had to kind of get comfortable in it and get your stride going. Well, you can't do that if they're rebooting every 12 issues. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm not asking you to throw yourself under a bus with Marvel. I know you got to work.
But a lot of that comes from the writers. I mean, the artists too. I mean, they every time you hop on a number one, then you get more attention. I think they're never going to write an article that says like Chen is doing another issue or whatever. But if I move to another book, then there's a headline. So that
But how fleeting is that headline? That number one, okay, hurrah, hurrah! But those readers jumped on for issue one, maybe bought issue two, and disappeared. And you're alienating the people that are going to buy the next 50, 60, 70 issues that have been reading for 40 years. I think you run into problems. You're right, you can't please everybody. But, I mean, I think there's a way that you can kind of stop the bleeding. I mean, sales have been down for over a decade now. There's a reason for that. I mean, I'm sure it's a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's kind of hard to say exactly how many reasons or what the exact reason is. But yeah, I can hardly believe, like, when I first started at Marvel, I had 3 years on Iron Man, 2 years on Wolverine, and then 18 issues of X-Men The End. Those are like really long. I think about it now, those are like really long runs. And, they pretty much defined your life for a few years, is that one book that you're on. That's kind of unheard of today. It just seems like you do 6 issues and then you switch to another book,
Yeah.
It's just kind of normal now.
But again, then how do you get to flesh out a character and make change seem real, Randy had said making change for the sake of change isn't a good thing, and I agree with him 100%. But when is this book coming out, the Claremont special?
It comes out December 23rd, the same day that Batman Beyond comes out.
Oh, that's going to be a good day for you, man. And what date is your Royal Collectibles signings?
We don't really know yet. I think we wanted to have some time to do some remarks. So if they have to get the issue in, then I have to sign and remark a lot of them. And then it gets put out on their Instagram to sell. So there's going to have to have some time in between. But then, the time in between is Christmas. So it's a little messy there. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but it's going to happen at some point.
So it'd be a good way to start the new year. Go see Sean, pick up those books, get remarks.
Yeah. I had no idea the book was coming out at the same time. Like, I think I did Batman Beyond number 50, got it finished so early on that, and then there was 2 fill-ins in a row. So that book was in the can for a long time. And then that's when I did the Chris Claremont thing. And then just lo and behold, they come out in the same day. So
I'm excited for the books. I'm excited. I'm happy to see you on multitude of books. I love your art. I've always loved your art. I mean, you're probably tired of drawing Iron Man and Wolverine, but I love your art.
Yeah, Iron Man is tough because it's so detailed, but I completely understand it though. I mean, it made me a name, being three years on that book, on that key moment in Iron Man's history. So I don't regret it one bit. So I would just keep drawing and drawing. And I think one thing about Avengers movies and how they portrayed Iron Man, just the design and everything was so cool. I actually look forward to drawing that, and that kind of really reinvigorated me to love the character again. So.
Cool. Randy, just to let you know, Royal Collectibles is on Metropolitan Avenue. It's technically Forest Hills, but it's really on the border of Middle Village. It's right off Woodhaven Boulevard where the Wendy's is. I don't know if you know where that is, if you're familiar. But you go look it up on Google. They're a big store. They're probably the biggest in Queens. They're not hard to find, and Mike is the owner. He's a good guy. Oh, there you go. All right. Well, Dante didn't give the address, but he gave you basically the area. Keith asked, how did you like drawing Alpha Flight on Wolverine? Did you want to do more with them?
Well, they're like any other character. I mean, they're Canadian, so it's just like I don't really have any connection with them other than just loving the way that they them as characters. So it's great because I thought the fact that and then a couple of them were siblings, and it just seems like it's the way I thought of it is the way that we feel about the X-Men. This is sort of like the Canadian X-Men, so
Right.
it's not something I would just like. Well, I'm not going to do a good job because they're just side characters. I'm thinking like this is a whole country's X-Men, so you got to do a good job on it, and they're kind of very cool characters. I thought like
Keith and I are big Alpha Flight fans, so
okay, yeah, yeah, so I thought some of them like Puck was a lot of fun to draw, but I just couldn't see him in real life. I mean, just a little weird, but yeah, just a very cool looking group. And that was, as an artist, I'm primarily concerned with like how I can make them look. And there's a lot to like about their design. They're like unified. So, yeah, I mean, it was great. So I would love to do more. I know I get a lot of, just from that one appearance in Wolverine, I get a lot of commission requests for them. So
I'd love to see you on an Alpha Flight book, a nice solid, continuing title. I would love that. And we'll get Chris to write it. That'd be great. We'll bring John Byrne back out of hiding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so when you get the call for a book, I mean, I would imagine you don't read everything. Do you do research before you get into it? And if so, what do you do? Buy back issues? Do they supply you with stuff? Do you just Wikipedia? What do you do?
Well, I think these days, if you get called, a lot of times it's from the assistant editor, and they're so busy. They're really been pared down to a skeleton crew, handling so much. And a writer can write a script, and if it's like the Marvel plot form, it's just kind of like broad strokes. You just have to kind of encapsulate a general story. But when it gets to an artist, we're actually drawing everything that takes place in that story. Every single character, every single side character, and their costumes and their props and everything has to be kind of conjured up out of our head, and we need something to go off of. Usually, if you ask, they'll provide that, but you can get the sense that they're really busy. So you kind of have to try to read between the lines, and then the research does help. Just basically reading everything that came before. That's kind of what I like to do. These days with Comixology, they say like if you need any reference, just ask. Well, they'd have to send me several omnibuses, or
Right.
I can just get it on Comixology. It's not that expensive, and just kind of read through it all.
Where do you find the time, though? My God, because you got to do all that reading and then get to work.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times it's for like 3 or 4 issues in a story, and that's it. And you did all that research for it. So
Kind of like an interview.
One of the best things you could have is like one of those like a super fan, read everything. It's good to pick their brain, especially if I didn't read the book. I would ask them like, what is it that you want to see? And it's like, what are the people like you, the diehard fans of Alpha Flight? What do you wait? Because a lot of times, something would happen in a story. I would draw it, not knowing that it's a very important moment that people have been waiting for decades. I didn't know that. I didn't read a book. So you ask a fan like to look over the script and say, oh, this is that moment. Then I know to give it some special TLC when I draw it. I got to be able to for fan service. You got to have know all that stuff. So I always have to find my core group of fans to just kind of ask them, like, I'm doing this book now. What is important about this character? And then to look at the stuff, like, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Because usually the fans are kind of all on the same page about like what they want to see and what characters it look like.
But that's also because you're a humble guy, though. You don't have an ego getting in your way. So that's pretty cool. Because I remember you were drawing a long shot and you had 5 fingers on him. And I told you, I said, dude, he has 4 fingers, just so you know. And you were doing it as a commission. You're like, oh, crap, thank you. I forgot. And you had to readjust the hand because you put 5 fingers on him. I don't know if you remember that. It was at a show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, crazy me thinking that everyone has 5 fingers.
Yeah. But that's the point is I knew, that's an obscure, fan knowledge thing that why would you know? You don't draw the character. You're not Arthur Adams. You didn't work on the book. So I just was giving you a heads up so you knew, because if it's a commission, that fan obviously knows long shot, and they'd be like, hey. Dante had a question. So in your experience, is it more Marvel method or full script in your current experiences? I know in the Marvel 616 series, they stated the only writer at Marvel that still writes in the Marvel method is Dan Slott.
Well, yeah, that documentary was a piece of work. But usually, I think since the writers and the companies have more control, they're actually writing full scripts now with the dialogue. I'm not sure if that's the best way to work, but the Marvel method is sort of like a shorthand, so you can really, fewer people have to be responsible for creating an entire story. Like if you see how many people it takes to make a movie or a TV show, there's tons of people involved.
Yep.
And tons of people in the writer's room. But with us, it's just like a writer and an artist, and there's just no time to do every single thing that's needed to be synergistically connected. So a lot of times they would just like, the writer has just enough time to tell like an overarching view of what the story is, and then the writer who sits with the story for a month can actually fill in all the details, and then hopefully make the story better. And then when it goes back to the writer, he can riff off of that stuff, and then you kind of get the best of both worlds. So in that sense, like I know in the 616 thing, they're kind of implying that the Marvel method is there to make up for a lot of laziness or something, but really it's just because Stan Lee is one guy and he's got a whole universe to take care of, so he can only write like basically a paragraph for each page, or just kind of an overview, and then the artist can kind of fill in a lot of the details. So these days we get a lot of full scripts, and that's one thing that's bad about that, is because the writers are calling the shots. They're telling you what to draw, and they may not be visually inclined. So the best thing about Dan Jurgens is he's an artist himself. So when he calls for something, yeah, he can be very specific about what he wants, because he knows, like, well, this is a close-up shot, and then this is a far-away shot. It's good to follow a close-up shot with a far-away shot, so to get some variety of images there. So you can also suggest layouts and stuff like that. So in that sense, that works really well. Ironically, he wrote in that plot method, even though he's qualified to dictate everything.
But as a writer, how do you feel about those very descriptive scripts that are kind of tight and not giving you a lot of room to play? Do you prefer those for that structure, or do you like it looser?
Well, I would think that it really has to do with if the writer can think visually and is the best person who can call those shots. A lot of times they're not, but like with Watchmen, I think Alan Moore would give Dave Gibbons like a script the size of a phone book, and I would want him to basically dictate everything, because everything is connected and it has a reason for being. But I mean, if there's a guy who can think visually, a lot of times these days you'll have writers from other genres, like or other medium, like novelists or screenwriters, and they're writing a comic book, and then they're asked like, well, what am I supposed to do? And it's like, well, you make it look like this. This is like a full script. So then he's writing a full script and never having done comics before. That's like a real nightmare, because you end up with like too many scenes where they're in one location forever, and it's really hard to make that work. So I think for the people who are qualified, I think a full script is fine. And for the people who probably need a little help from the visual side, should leave it up to the artist. And likewise, if you have an artist who is not good at storytelling, maybe he needs to have his hand held with a full script. But if you have a real pro, a veteran who can handle that stuff better than you, just write, fight scene 3 pages and then give it to him. That's all you need. So.
Do you find writers more often than not rely on you guys for the art direction, or do you think writers more often than not think they're going to dictate the art direction to you?
Well, a lot of times they don't know who's drawing their story. So I think to be on the safe side, they give you full scripts. But um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, for some reason, for a while, there was full scripts all the time because that seemed like the rule for both companies. But now it's beginning to open up, and things are kind of changing, and I think they're going on a kind of case by case basis. I mean, yeah, in the end, the end product is what matters, and then
Right.
very quickly you know what each person is capable of, and you kind of tailor your method to that.
Yeah, unfortunately, though, I think they've gone away from a lot of the pros that have been doing this for years that probably would make it an easier transition. They're constantly getting, and not saying that they shouldn't, but they're getting new creators that are new to this, you know, storytelling when they have a whole stable of guys that have, women that have been doing this for decades that, I don't know if there's such a thing as outdated, but there's plenty of people that could come in here and tear out a comic book and wow everybody again, that they're just not going to that stable anymore, which is a shame. But
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I think what they would say is that artists and writers will cycle in and out of Marvel, and then they have to be replaced by new talent because the other ones move on. I think that's what they would imply. I think a lot of people said they feel like they've been shown the door or something because no one wants to see their old art. So I mean, for a variety of reasons, they're finding new talent. If they're trying to get an edge to their book, like they want it to feel like very young and edgy, that's always a good thing, and they want to be ahead of the curve. So they'll hire someone who is, maybe has only been in the indie scene for a short while. A lot of times the storytelling chops and their art chops are not there yet, but it's kind of more important to hear their voice and see what they have to say. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I do see a lot of some people who are kind of like not ready for prime time doing their books, which is, it's their choice, and that's fine, and it's great to give people a shot. But yeah, it's refreshing when you have a veteran who knows what they're doing also. So
sure. Well, I mean, look at the success of Batman Beyond, and you have veterans, you and Chris Sotomayor and Dan Jurgens. I mean, you're all veterans, and the book was successful, and it was a beautiful product. So there is something to be said about that, to me.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm biased.
Yeah, I kind of see like the career path of every artist or every creator or anything pop culture wise is like a bell curve. You start rising in popularity, and then you hit a peak at some point, and then I don't think you really maintain that peak forever. Eventually, the forces kind of like make you go take a downward side and it's like a bell curve. And once you're through with the bell curve, it's very hard to come back and say like, I got something new to show. They don't want to see it and they don't want to hear it because the bell curve is done. So I was brought on for Iron Man. That was my peak. That was a quarter century ago. And then now I completed my bell curve, and then now I'm back again asking whether they'll allow me to have another bell curve so it looks more like an M instead of an N. I don't know. Big experiment. So.
Do you think, and again, I'm not implying that I think this, I'm just asking the question, do you think there's an element of that being orchestrated because maybe publishers are afraid that the artist and the writer is going to start being the power behind the book as opposed to the character? Because they own the character. They don't own the artist and writer. If Batman is the reason why you buy the book, then they're still in charge. But if Sean Chen's the reason why you buy the book, now Sean Chen can call the shots to a degree.
Well, I mean, I can think it's kind of hard to imagine that if a book is doing really well with a writer and artist, that they would say, well, it's time to move them off to someone new because they're getting too popular. I'm just kind of thinking that.
See, I think that goes on.
Okay.
I think they get threatened by Todd McFarlane becoming synonymous with Spider-Man. They get threatened by that. I do. I think they do. At least now they would.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I mean, I know it's to their benefit to. I think I once heard that the great thing about running Marvel is that all those characters they own work for free. So.
That's good. That's true. Dante basically said he agrees. A person would rather a great artist storytelling in a book than some fresh, new, hot at the moment artist that's willing to work for pennies. But I'm just an jaded old man like Phil. Yeah, I'm not going to argue. I'm a jaded old man.
Um, yeah, I mean, I would just basically, again, on a case by case basis. A lot of times there are people who come back, and they're past their prime, and their art shows, and they have like real old ways of thinking. You know, I think I personally am not into that, but then you have some people who are just kind of timeless. I know like Barry Windsor Smith is coming back with a book, and I'm very
Yeah.
interested in seeing that. Um, but if you look at the work and it looks like he's doing his best work 10 years ago, then it's fair to say that that work is past its prime. But if they're doing their best work, it's also very hard to say because people have these nostalgia goggles. There's a lot of people who think that I basically peaked at Iron Man, and then they don't know what the hell I'm doing now. If you look at Jim Lee, he doesn't draw anything like he used to. I mean, he had a Malibu style. He does something
Mhm.
completely different. But there's probably a good many people who only associate him with an old style and can't even see that he draws it. He's basically a different artist now.
Right.
So on a case by case basis, if that stuff looks good, I think that's great. Like Greg Capullo disappeared, came back, and it's more popular than ever. So it does work sometimes, and then sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I have thought that your work was always incredible, but I'm going to be honest. I think you're one of the artists that has just gotten better over time, as good as you were in the beginning, personally. So I hope to see you get continued success and work. What's on the horizon for 2021 for you? Anything with the big publishers or anything else going on?
Um, you know, I um, I'm gonna lay low for a while because the thing with the schools, it was really tough doing those books, Batman Beyond and the Chris Claremont special, because the schools kept on closing, and now and would be responsible for teaching the kids,
Right.
and that I used to be able to sit home while they're at school and just draw all day long and then draw all night, but then it's different now because you get bothered like every 15 minutes.
Oh, I know.
Also, like if your kid goes to school and they don't understand what's going on, the teacher doesn't really know because they're teaching a class of 30 people, so they kind of just move on, and then you'll catch up later or whatever. But when your kid is doing that Zoom school, you kind of know when they're not getting it, so you gotta keep on teaching until they get it. That could take all day, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I know, and when you have young
yeah.
children like you and I do, that you can't just leave them to do the work and then you just double check it. You have to work with them. You're there the whole time, helping them cross those T's and dot those I's. So yeah, I mean, we're now working. We're not knocking teachers by any means, but now we are teaching on a level that we weren't. It's one thing to help a kid with their homework and keep an eye and make sure they're doing what they got to do, but now we're actually teaching.
Right.
So I agree.
So
Are you open for commissions?
I am, yes. Well, it's I guess because I just finished up the Chris Claremont thing, so for the first time I'm kind of there's a backlog I'm working through. That's why I just showed Andy Lee's commission that's a year old. I still have to work through a bunch of those, but once that's done, I think that's kind of maybe the main thing I do for a while because I can kind of take those on and work at my own pace.
And the best way to reach you for a commission would be through the Instagram, or
Instagram, yeah, direct message. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of that coming in the future, but I do spend a lot of time on those, so I can't really knock those out like every day or something. But so there's a lot of people who probably want to get on the list that I won't get to for a while. So there's that too. So.
I think most art collectors, at least the experienced ones, as long as you communicate, they understand and they're patient. I think you guys usually run into problems with people that are new at art collecting and they don't understand that deadlines come first and other things get in the way, and they think that they're supposed to get their piece in 2 weeks. So I think just communicate, and I think artists usually don't have much of a problem. So. What advice would you give aspiring creators, writers, and artists now that you're writing successfully, that are trying to break into the indie scene or into big publishing?
Well, I guess, geez. Well, when it comes to art, like I know, um, I've had the luxury of being able to work at the art as long as I wanted to. I think there's a lot of people who, um, life gets in the way and they can't spend that much time just drawing all day. I was lucky in that, I'm from upper middle class, and there's always been opportunities where if I wanted to draw, I can do it. So it's that combination of the desire to want to do it, and then also doing it, and then also knowing that even when you don't want to do it, you have to draw, and then you do get better with every drawing. Um, what I'll be really watching out for is if someone who really wants to do this for a living, wants to become a comic book artist, but can go for 2 weeks without drawing anything. That's not good. um, so I would say draw a lot, and then also try to get your 10,000 hours in, but also be very deliberate and judicious about what you draw, so that you're not just drawing over and over again what you draw well, so you can show it off, but to work on the hard stuff and find solutions for the things that you can't draw. Um, and then, I would say start as early as you can to put out a narrative, like a story type thing. Engage that as well. So that keeps you from drawing. Like if you like drawing pretty women faces, like all of us do, you might just fill a whole sketchbook with that. But then when you got to tell a story, it makes you draw things that you didn't think that you'd be forced to draw horses and cars and all that stuff. So I would say engage the storytelling aspect as soon as possible, and then just leverage all of YouTube, because there's so much drawing instruction out there. So that's a good thing about working now. The resources are everywhere now. So,
How do you overcome those moments where you just don't feel like drawing, but you know you need to?
well, um, well, there's really no room when you're on a job. Like one of the reasons I'm not doing a comic now is because mentally it can be exhausting. Because there's a lot of times you don't feel like drawing, but you have to do it because there's a deadline,
Mm-hmm.
and you're very aware of the inker doesn't work until you get the page done, and then the letterer doesn't do his job, and the colorist. I mean, the colorist usually the last guy sometimes has to color the book in 2 days, and then if he has to color the book in 2 days, most likely it's your fault because the writer, can write a story in a short amount of time, but it sits with the artist for like a month, and it could be longer if the artist is slow. So I'm not the fastest artist, but I'm very aware of the people down the line that feed their families by this assembly line process. If it's held up by me, it's not a good feeling. So even if I don't feel like drawing, would feel even worse for the people who are coming along, and also for Marvel and DC and their publishing schedule. It causes a lot of problem. And just knowing that you'll never be asked to do more stuff for them again if you really screw
Right.
up. So
Exactly.
so yeah. So that was a real challenge with working during the pandemic. Is I'm not going to jump into another thing until things clear up, because I don't want to cause problems with the team and the company. So
Right.
um, yeah.
So my last question that I always ask everyone, and I did ask you this the last time you were on, but let's see if it's changed. If you could go back in time to when you were younger and you were starting out, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
I'm not sure what I said last time, but it's kind of unusual because I'm the first repeat guest. But most likely, what it was is I put my eggs in one basket, which is drawing ability. Like I struggle with drawing, and I spent all my time improving the drawing because I thought that was the only thing that ever mattered. That I thought like it didn't matter if you didn't have any social skills, or if you're a jerk, or whether you can't meet a deadline. But if you are a great, if you're great at drawing, then that trumps everything. It's not really true though, because you can actually put out a great, entertaining comic. I think you have to be just. I would tell myself that you just have to be good enough at the drawing. Then the other things come into play. It's like who your drinking buddies are, and whether you can hold a conversation with someone, whether you're, whether you're good with the fans, or you're antagonistic. There's other stuff like that, and also like engage the writing part, because I never really cared about writing. It was always just drawing. But it's possible to become like the very best artist who does very poorly in this business, because that's all you can do is just put all your eggs in that one basket, and it's a lot less important than it turned out to be. Um, Not to say that you shouldn't work hard at drawing, you really should, but then there's other things. Um, just also being really good at the social media part is very important. You can
I
actually
think
go far
artists.
with that.
I think most artists' weakness is their self promotion. They're very bad at marketing themselves, and that's why there are
Yeah,
art reps out there.
yeah. I always joked. I was telling someone that, or mutual friends with Cliff Chang, is that I would like to just hand him my career and just say, well, I have this drawing skill set, but that's about it. I can't choose assignments. I can't, it, whatever he thinks I should do, I would do, because I don't know. I'm not sure I'm making the right decisions for everything, but and this, for me, it's about, I like to draw, and then they allow me to draw, and that's as far as it goes with me. But about like maneuvering in this career, making the right decisions, and then and just knowing how to connect with the fans, like that part, I didn't really put that much of a stock in.
Robert has a question before we go. What characters do you hate and love to draw?
um, well, I think it's ironic, but I think uh, um, the characters, like when I first started out, I was an industrial designer, and I had trouble drawing. Understandably, you have trouble drawing people because they're very hard. Like the organic stuff and the facial expressions were the hardest to do. But that really is the most fun and the most important part. So early on, they gave me Iron Man to draw, and before that it was X-Men Man of War. But Iron Man is just he's basically all covered up, and it's the hard line mechanical stuff, because I understood the mechanical stuff a lot better, because there are rules on, and there's like you can have your own algorithm in your head of how that stuff looks. So that stuff you can understand, but then the organic stuff, like the facial expressions, are just too complex. So I don't enjoy drawing the high tech armor stuff, because I mean it takes a lot of time. Um, I think in the end it looks really cool, but it's just really tough to do. And I get a lot of those assignments because backgrounds, high tech, feature stuff is kind of what I've been known for. So I get a lot of those books, but it's a chore. Um, so yeah, I both like and dislike doing the really intense mechanical man-made stuff. So,
By the way, you're on a lot of my jams. Over here, that's your Rogue, and you can't see it in the corner, but under there you do Aries, which came out unbelievable.
okay.
And you've been on my image jam, and you've done a lot of work on my jams, which I hope will continue once cons come back and everything. So I love your art. I think you're one of the most humble, nicest guys in the industry. It's always enjoyable to speak with you, and I appreciate that. So please plug Wingman again. Tell us where we can get it and everything, and then I'm going to tell everybody again how great it is after you tell everybody about it. And then if you would go backstage after and hang out for a minute.
Okay, yeah. If you go to my Instagram, it's in the bio, and I usually have on the Instagram stories one of those swipe up type things that tells you, it takes you to the ordering page. You can order it there. If you're a local guy, or if you meet me at a convention, I'll sign it and remark it for you. Or you can go to Next Chapter Post, which is the publisher, and they have it in their bio also. So, and I think since the book is already printed, it ships very quickly, so you can get it within 1 or 2 weeks. In time for Christmas, makes a great gift. Like this Yoda sculpture. You can
Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome.
in the back. Um, so yeah, Wingman. It's available now, and then you can get it within a couple of weeks. And I think there is even though it says unlimited, it is sort of like a limited supply, because these are printed with an overprint from the first batch. So they will run out eventually, but in time for Christmas though. So,
And how much are they?
$28. So that's the prestige format, square bound, and then it's a one of those coffee table editions. So for the collector in you, you can read the whole story for free, but you don't own this prestige format book. So.
Well, and I'm again, for those of you who've tuned in late, I'm going to be very serious about this. I remember when Sean put this out on Instagram, and it was page by page, like every week or whatever, as he was doing it, and it was just a fun project. But we were all engaged, we were all enthralled. His followers on Instagram, we loved it, and I loved reading it every week. I had alerts, so I knew when it was out, and I got to read it. And it's a fantastic story, and it's got humor, it's got drama, it's got moral themes to it. It's just a fun book. It kind of mirrors life. Life is not one emotion; it's a bunch. You'll get out of this. I've watched the progression of this book from from his inception, in the sense that the first published version was like an ash can, to now this version that I'm holding right here, which is, again, it's like a coffee table. It's 57 pages of story with a few other pages in it. And just to show you, again, the quality of work. If you didn't know Chen, for some whatever reason, you live in a cave, the quality of work is fantastic. The black and white suits the style of the book fantastically. Basically, it's not just a book, though. There are so many reasons why you can enjoy this book, not only for its story content, not only for the quality of art, not only because it'll make you laugh and it'll make you think, and it just engages you, and it's an amazing story. If you're tired of getting, superheroes or what's out there, it's a great story that brings you somewhere else. It's original, it's different. I mean, it's got its basis of the movie, The Seventh Seal, is it? But it's its own thing. But it also has commentary in it that helps you as someone trying to get into business on story paneling. He talks about story paneling in it. I mean, let me just bring it up again, some of the things that we did. If you see here on the side, there is text from Sean about the actual sequential storytelling on it, or lettering on it, or basically the flow of panels. So it's educational. You can learn a lot from it. It's a high quality production. I mean, the cover is this really cool. It feels weird, but it's really cool. It's like a soft cardboard. I love it. That is the back. Again, if you missed out the first time, unfortunately, art, Sean said that he'll remark it, and you've got, I'm telling you, look at all this space to remark. You've got a page in the front here where if you want to pay for a sketch, you could get a sketch on the inside from him. It's 57 pages of comic, of a well worth story. So $28 for 57 pages is totally worth it. And you're supporting a good guy and his family, and he has a beautiful family, by the way. And I mean this with every ounce of my being. I love this book. I own the first Ashcan version. I own this version, and I read it when it was on Instagram, and I still wanted to buy it. So don't just go read it for free. As much as Sean is kind to leave it up there, support it. Buy the book. It is so worth it to have this book to pull out anytime you want to read it. Or, my wife read it. She loved it. She thought it was really good. It's intelligent humor with a little silly humor, with drama, a moral theme. It's touching. And I honestly cannot say enough. If I didn't know Sean, if I didn't like Sean and thought he was a big doofus, I still think the book is excellent. It's an excellent story. It is well written. You would think Sean had been writing for years. I'm serious. For Christmas, ask somebody to buy it for you if you don't want to buy it yourself or whatever, or at least let everybody know about it if you can't buy it or not interested, because I'm telling you, it's a really quality story. And again, I don't know what we're doing, but we'll talk to Sean if he's able to stop by the show. He may be able to take your books and do remarks at a later date or something, or just sign them for you if you want. I don't know, maybe he'll have a few books to purchase. I don't think you do, though, because they're at the publisher, right?
Right, from Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
All right, so, I mean, if you buy the book, and if Sean winds up stopping by the show, or even if you want to go to his signing at Royals after Christmas, you could get a remark and a signature on the book. Also, just keep in mind, look out for December 23rd is issue number 50 of Batman Beyond that Sean had drawn. It is the final issue. It's been a great book with Dan Jurgens writing. And also the Chris Claremont special, 5 Decades of Writing from Marvel. He will be on that, as well as Bill Sienkiewicz and Brett Booth and a great creative team. Both of those books come out December 23rd at your local comic shop. Make sure you can pre-order them at some places like Dante did at Royal if you'd like to pre-order those books. Go back and check out the Batman Beyond books. If you never collected the story, go check it out. Sean's art is amazing. Dan Jurgens, of course, is a great writer. And a little after Christmas, keep an eye out for Sean's signing appearance at Royal and maybe some other places. Sean, thanks for coming on again. It's great and fitting that you're my first return guest.
Yeah,
I wish you much success.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's always fun to be on your extremely long show. So,
Sean with the backhanded compliments.
no, but it just shows that people are interested. So that's great. So I appreciate it. So I'll be back. I hope I'm the first to come back for a third time. So
for a very long show. I did tell you could go in the private chat and say, okay, it's time to go. So, but you didn't.
Well, we're also hanging out afterwards. So,
yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to keep you long. Don't worry. Hey, Peter Palmiani is here. A few people just wanted to... Yeah, he's a good guy. Love the episode. Thanks for the great insight tonight, Sean. And that's a great piece you did for Andy. Randy said he's bummed that Batman Beyond is ending, one of his current favorites. Andy said, thanks, Sean. You're a great creator and a great guy. Great seeing you again. I hope to see you on the con circuit. And Giovanni said, I'm definitely interested. Giovanni, I promise you, I give you my word, and I don't lie. It's a good story. And if you don't think it's a good story, then sell it to somebody that does like it. But I'm telling you, you're going to like it. It's a good story. You're going to like the book. I promise you. And just even the instructions in it, all the side notes are great in the book. So please check it out. If you want a commission from Sean Chen, reach out on Instagram, but just keep in mind, it is going to take him a little time. So you got to be patient with him if you do request a commission. Okay. But it is well worth it. Again, is worth the wait. And he's a good guy. You're not going to get stiffed. Just be patient. Norm Ratman is here.
Hey, Norm.
What makes Sean great? He came on your show twice.
Wow, it's like a porno. No, the editor asked for a couple of names for the Chris Claremont special. I put Norm in there and Sean Parsons' name, and then I got this other guy. So I guess Norm was busy. But we've been trying to work together. I mean, Norm's one of my favorite anchors. So.
Oh, Norm is probably busy eating Reese's peanut butter cups or something somewhere, or Cocoa Puffs, or or peanut butter out of the jar with his Gandalf beard. Norm is definitely one of the best thinkers in the business, and he's a really nice guy. I enjoyed having him at my last show. You were both at my last show. Norm is really cool. He's a good guy, and it's nice to have met so many good people in the industry, because unfortunately, once in a while you run into some that will sour you, but more of you guys are awesome than not. Peter said he goes, Sean draws pretty good. Yeah, Keith, he's probably drinking Tang. Norm is probably drinking Tang too. Tang cupcakes. All right, Sean, thanks for coming out again. I'm so glad to have you back. You're welcome at any time. And we'll figure out details if you're able to stop by the show or not. And if you're not, if I can help in any way facilitate things with the books, let me know. Okay, maybe people could drop off the books with me, and I can meet you and give them to you with written instructions on each book or something. I don't mind taking that on to help everybody.
Fantastic, much appreciated. You've always been very good that way. I think you're like one of the big patrons of artists. So I think.
Oh shucks.
You should be a rep.
Well, I am. That'll be announced soon. That'll be an announcement soon. Sean, honestly, it's always great talking to you. If you just give me a few minutes backstage, I won't keep you much longer tonight.
Yeah. Nope.
Thanks again for coming out.
Sure, glad to do it. It's great talking to people. So, Wingman, buy it now, or don't.
Buy it now. I'm telling you, you're giving your money to a good guy and a good family, and it's a well-written, quality book that you won't have wasted your money on. I'm dead serious about that. I put my reputation behind this book.
Wow, thank you.
And he just said I have a good reputation, so I'm putting it on the line right now for this book. So, all right, Sean. Thanks, man. Oh, John, I meant to say hi to you before when you came in. John Ottinger. He has his own creation. Wonderful human being. I can't say enough about John Ottinger. He was very kind and generous to my family, and I will never, ever forget that. A great human being with a great product, too. Great characters and everything. Great world. So, Sean, see you on the flip side.
All right. See you on the other side.
Thanks. All right, that was Sean Chen back for more punishment. I don't know what made him want to come back and talk to me again, but I'm grateful for it. He honestly is one of the nicest, most humble people in the industry. You obviously know his talent level, and I'm dead serious. The book is that good. I really, really enjoyed it. It's well worth the money and all the extras you get with it. So please go pick up the book. Go check it out. And then if you want to bring it to me at my show, even if Sean is not at the show, I will get written instructions on what you want done to it. I'll bring it to Sean myself and have it taken care of, and then we can work on getting it shipped back to you, okay? Whatever we can do, get the damn book, or else I'm going to haunt you every day of your life. Okay. Anyway, having said that, tomorrow night I do have an indie creator, Andrew Russell Burkett. He'll be on at 10 o'clock. And then on Black Friday, after Thanksgiving, we end the week with Shannon Mayer. I'm sorry, I'm tired. Shannon Mayer. Shannon Mayer has done some incredible covers for DC. If you don't know, go check him out. It's Shannon, Maer. And of course, we're going to have Becky Fuller with him, who's a colorist, and she's done some wonderful work. And we're going to talk with them on Friday. I know we've been pumping out a lot of shows. I unfortunately don't know how to say no to all these indie creators that are trying to get their books off the ground or campaigns. Unfortunately, I am going to have to scale back on the shows. There have been a lot. But bear with us. Support these guys. Please come out, watch the show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Share out live. It's for them, not me. I don't get paid for this. I don't get anything out of this other than the satisfaction that I hopefully help somebody pursue their dream. And I'm serious about that. I just want them to get help and exposure. I don't want anybody to be discouraged and not be able to live their dream. It doesn't take a lot to share something out or just put the show on for a while and check out what they got going on. Whether you buy it or not, just check it out. Give them a chance. That's all anybody ever wants in this life is a chance. That's it. All right? I will hopefully see you tomorrow night. Thank you to everybody that came out and always supports the show. God bless all of you. You're wonderful human beings. You're pillars of the community, not me, because you guys are the ones that are the fans and support everything. Go buy Wingman. Go buy Wingman. Go buy Wingman. I will leave you with I always leave you. Be legendary and have fun storming the castle.